Jan Blake is a monumental name in the world of storytelling. She graced our stage with her presence at the last ISTEK ELT conference here in Istanbul. Her performance left the audience in pure amazement at the interactive, realistic journey through an African village that Miss Blake had taken us on. It was official. We were hooked. We needed more Jan Blake. And well, ladies and gentlemen, here she is again. When asked to give 3 adjectives to describe herself, she answered lovable, luscious, and loquacious.
Loquacious.
Personally, I'd have to add infectious, formative, and brilliant. Jan was born in Manchester, UK, to parents from Jamaican descent. Now, with over 25 years of experience performing worldwide, Miss Blake's stories capture the world and the daily life of people from African, Caribbean, and Arabian backgrounds.
But we said inspirational, Miss Blake. She's not only a storyteller, she is a performer and a teacher of students from all ages and all walks of life. In 1998, Jan launched the Aqua Storytelling Project in the UK, which was founded as a school for new storytellers. In the same year, Jan, in association with the Natural History Museum Education Department, developed the Myth and Monsters Education Project, which prepared teacher notes on storytelling in the classroom. If that wasn't enough, she co-wrote the children's picture book, Give Me My Yam, that same year. Among other accomplishments and successes, Jan has and continues to be closely linked to famous classical performing theatre such as the Royal National Theatre, the London Philharmonic Orchestra, the National Concert Hall of Ireland, and the Lyric Theatre Hammersmith, just to name a few. Now, when interviewed by our good friend Jeremy Harmer, he asked her, Jan, what lesson of life would you like to pass on to people younger than yourself? And Jan replied, learn to listen deeply before speaking.
With words that will automatically cause critical reflective thought, today Miss Blake will explore what children need from stories to help them develop a better understanding of language. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our great pleasure to welcome back to our stage Miss Jan Blake.
Good afternoon, everybody. That was only a few of you who answered. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Fine.
Very good. I'm fine, thank you, for those who asked. Thank you. First of all, I want to begin by thanking Buju, where are you? There, for inviting me back, to all of you for having me back. And I'd just like, could we take some volume off this microphone? Turn it down a little bit, please. It's very loud and echoey. Okay. Yeah? Can we take the echo off completely, please? Thank you, because I can hear myself 3 times. So basically, the reason I came up with this title is because I was asked to. And usually when I speak, I actually don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to English language teaching, because I'm not an English language teacher. But what I am qualified to talk about is how children receive stories and what they need when they're listening to a story. And my title, they're not interested, they don't care about vocabulary, they care about the characters, came about because I was invited recently to help launch a product for helping children to learn English. And the thing that I found most difficult about that product was that the narrative that they presented to teach that, to help children learn English was so bad. The story was so poor. And I could understand the person had written the story because there were certain words they wanted children to understand. But there was no connection with the characters. There was no, you know, that sense that you really care about what happens to a character. I didn't care what happened at all. All I knew was, oh, they want them to learn this word, they want them to learn this word, they want them to learn this word, they want them to... And that was it. That was all I got from that experience. So I would like to share with you some stories that I think help children to really connect with the language through their emotions and through their empathy with the characters within the story. Is that all right for you? Yeah? So that's what I'm going to do. You're going to hear beautiful stories. You might cry, you might laugh, I don't know. And if at the end of it you want to write a list of vocabulary, that's your choice. But from my point of view, sit back and enjoy the story. And I'm going to start with a story from West Africa. And just take us into the mood, I'm going to start with a song, okay? For those who are recording, this song is actually someone else's material. So I prefer you not to record the song, but feel free to record the story. How are you? Are you well? Oh, poor thing. It'll be all right. And then when she was gone, they would say, see, she's so miserable. No wonder he left. This woman, she went on her knees every day and she prayed to the gods. Every night she said, please, I'm begging you. If I've been an evil person, forgive me. I just want to be a mother. I'll be the best mother in the world. I will never strike my children. I will never shout at them. I will never be rough with them. I will love them, love them, love them. Every morning she went on her knees with the same prayer. One day, her crying and her prayers were so loud that all the gods and goddesses in heaven, they said, who's making that noise? And they looked down and they said, oh, it's that one. We forgot about her. We should answer her prayer. And so they did. But you know what gods and goddesses are like. Nothing goes straight. Like the success thing that we saw yesterday in the assessment, nothing goes straight. And so instead of sending their blessings to her belly, they sent their blessings to her farm. And on her farm, she grew gourds. Gourds are from the same family as pumpkins and squash. When you scrape out the inside, you have a bowl, or you have a dipper, or you have something to carry your washing to the river. They sent all their blessings to her gourd farm. And when she went on her knees that morning and made her prayer, she gathered her things and she went to her farm. And when she got there, all the gourds were big and fat and ripe. And she said to herself, I'm fortunate. Look how they've grown so quickly. And she took her knife and she very carefully cut them and harvested them. One was so big and fat that it had split and all the juice was running out. That she put by her three-legged stove. The others she put up in the rafters of her house, and then she went back to the farm. And as soon as she was gone, each one of those gourds transformed and became a child. A beautiful child. The big fat one by the fires, his name was Kitete. What was his name? Kitete. And up in the rafters, all the other children with their legs dangling, they said, Kitete, Kitete, lift us down from the rafters so we can help our mother. And Kitete, who had been a big, fat, round gourd with a split in its side, was now a big, fat, round boy with a twisted hip. And Kitete, he limped up and he lifted his brothers and sisters down, and they ran around the house, they cooked, they cleaned, they washed, and as they did, they sang. And you have to help me with the song. The song went like this. Kotoko sarua, you sing ching sarua. Kotoko sarua, ching sarua. Kotoko sarua, sarua sarua. Sarua sarua. I've got you. Over here. Kotoko sarua. Kotoko sarua. Sarua sarua. Sarua sarua. Okay. You think I've forgotten you? I haven't. Kotoko sarua. Kotoko sarua. Sarua sarua. Sarua sarua. Okay, I've said this before and I will say it again, okay? Music equals movement, yeah? That man moved his head, I thank you. Yeah? But the rest of you are sitting there like this. Yeah? And I'd really rather you didn't. So, or you didn't have to dance, you don't have to, but just, just move something. It helps. It really helps. Yeah? Okay, you ready? So, kotoko sarua. Kotoko sarua. Sarua sarua. Sarua sarua. Kotoko sarua. Kotoko sarua. Sarua sarua. Sarua sarua. They cooked, they cleaned, they washed, they scrubbed, they played games. The sun moved across the sky. And when the sun dipped behind the curtain of the west, Kitete, who couldn't do any heavy work, who sat poking the fire and keeping lookout, suddenly said, she's coming, everybody, back in the rafters. And he lifted his brothers and sisters, he put them back in the rafters, and they all changed back into gourds. Kitete sat by the three-legged stove, and he turned into a gourd. Crick! Crick! Your crack is not convincing. Yeah? When you say crack, you're saying, come on, give me the story. Crick! 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 The woman, she walked in through the door, and she saw that all her laundry had been done, her floors had been swept, the food had been cooked, her house was clean. She said, hey, somebody's been in my house. And then she said, oh, it's the other women. They sent their children. I should tell you, the other women had, by degrees, turned against her. She was isolated in this village, and she thought, oh, they've forgiven me. So she went from house to house. Did you send your children to cook for me? No. And the door was shut in her face. Did you send your children to cook for me? No. And the door was shut in her face. Throughout the village, the door was shut in her face, but she went home, she counted her blessings, she washed her hands, she washed her face, she gave thanks, she ate the food. In the morning, she fell on her knees, she said, thank you. The food was obviously a gift from you, but I'd rather have children. And then she went to the farm. As soon as she was gone, all of the gourds became children. As soon as she was gone, they began to run around the house after their brother had lifted them down from the rafters. They did their work, their washing, their cooking, their cleaning. Kitete poked the fire, and he led the singing. Kotoko sarua, kotoko sarua, sarua sarua, sarua sarua, kotoko sarua, kotoko sarua, sarua sarua, sarua sarua. They washed, they cooked, they cleaned. The sun moved across the sky, and as it dipped behind the curtain of the west, Kitete said, she's coming, quick, quick, everybody. And he lifted his brothers and sisters back into the rafters. They all became gourds. He sat by the three-legged stove. He became a gourd. The woman, she stepped in through the door. She said, somebody has been in my house, and I'm going to find out who. So she said her prayer. She ate her food. The next morning, she said her prayers again. Thank you, she said. That's very kind of you. But I'd much rather have children. And then she said, well, I'm going to my farm now. I'll be gone all day. Then she took her tools and she left the house. But of course, she didn't go to the farm. She stood by the side of the house and she waited. She waited until she heard, Kitete, Kitete, lift us down from the rafters. Kitete, she said. Who is Kitete? She edged along the side of the house and she looked through the open door. There were children in her house. Beautiful, dark-skinned children with big brown eyes. And they were washing and they were cooking and they were cleaning. And there was a great big happy boy smiling and singing at the fire. She ran in through the door. She said, who are you? And they said, Kitete, she's not supposed to see us. Put us back in the rafters. And she said, wait, who is Kitete? Is your name Kitete? And he said, yes, my name is Kitete. And she said, and why do they speak of the rafters? And then she looked up. My gourds. And then she looked at the children. Are you the gourds from my farm? Please, she said, please, I'm begging you. Don't go away. Stay here. Be my children. I will look after you. I will love you. I will never beat you. I'll never shout at you. I will just hold you and love you. Please, will you stay with me? I'm so lonely. And they said, we have to discuss it. And they got into a little huddle and they discussed it. And then they turned around and they said, all right, Mama, we'll stay. And she said, what did you call me? And with one voice they said, Mama. Ah. Now her tears were tears of joy. She said, come here. And the children, they ran to her. They climbed on top of her. They hugged her. They kissed her. And then she said, wait. And then she went out into the village. She said, I have children. I I have children. You can see I'm not a bad woman. I'm not evil. Come and see. And all the other women, they said, finally. She's gone mad. But they followed her to her house. And they saw those beautiful, smiling children. And they were ashamed. They couldn't look at her. And she said, it's all right, I understand. But look at my babies. Look at my children. And one of the women said, we'll hold a party. And they did. They had a big party. 3 days and 3 nights of eating, drinking, dancing, ululating. Ladies, are you ready? Yeah? You know how to ululate? No. You don't know how to ululate? No. Okay. Ululation does not sound like a mobile phone ringing. Ululation is like almost. Not quite. What's missing is the joy. So you must think of joyful thoughts, okay? And what I want you to do is relax your jaw. Some of you already know how to do this. Relax your jaw. And you go, yeah. Let me hear you. Yeah. You see? Those of you who know will do it. Those of you who don't know, follow the ones who do know. Okay? 3 days and 3 nights of eating, drinking, dancing, and ululating. After 3 days and 3 nights of eating, drinking, dancing, and ululation, everything went back to normal. Everything went back to as it should be. Only now she had a house full of children. Not only did she have a house full of children, she had hands to help her on the farm. Not only did she have hands to help her on the farm, she had more money than anyone else. Can we turn the volume down? It's peaking. Can we turn the volume down? Down, please. Down, yeah. Down. Thank you. Not only, can you hear me? Yeah. Not only did she have money, she was now the richest woman in that village. And everybody respected her. But anyone who has children knows your life changes forever. Whether you like it or not. And even though she wanted to keep her promise, there were days when the children would play loudly. And she would say, hey, stop the noise. What's wrong with you? You have to make so much noise. I'm tired. All day I'm at the farm. I want to sleep. Go over there and read a book. And of course the children, they would look at her. Because she promised, didn't she? I will never shout at you. And when she saw the children's looks accusing her, she would say, I'm sorry. It's because I'm tired. Come, hold me. So she would hug them, and because children forgive their parents everything, they forgave her. The next time the children were fighting, the children were arguing, Mom! She said, listen. You sit there, you sit there, you sit there, you sit there, you sit there. Shoop! Don't say a word. I don't want to hear from you. You make too much noise. They would look at her. She made a promise. And then she would remember the promise. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry. It's because I'm tired. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Come, hold me. And of course, children forgive their parents everything. And they ran to her and they held her and they kissed her and they hugged her. Now, I told you, didn't I, that she was the richest woman in the village. Yes? So now, as the richest woman in the village, she had to throw a party when all the yams were harvested. So there was a big pile of yams outside her house. And some of the children were helping her to prepare for the big party that she would give. Kitete was poking the fire. Some older ones were helping the younger ones to get dressed. And she was passing backwards and forwards with food to set outside where the party was to take place. Kitete had a twisted hip. He couldn't sit for a long time as we expect children to do with his legs crossed like this. He couldn't do it, so he would have to stretch out his legs. But his mother was passing backwards and forwards. Kitete, she said, pull in your legs. Kitete said, I'm sorry, Mama. He pulled in his legs. She passed, she came back. Kitete, I told you, pull in your legs. I'm sorry, Mama. He said, I'm sorry. He walked past. She walked past. She got a big pan of goat stew. Kitete's hip was giving him trouble. He stretched out his leg. You already saw what happened. She tripped over his leg. The pan went flying out of her hands. The forward motion meant that she went into the stew. And because she went into the stew, she was slipping and sliding. And Kitete, even though he didn't mean to, he saw this as funny. To see someone, you've seen someone fall in the snow, it's funny, you can't help it. Kitete, he saw this and she turned and she looked at him. She said, Kitete, I told you to pull in your legs. And he said, sorry, Mama. She said, I told you to pull in your legs and I fell and the stew is ruined and you are laughing. Do you think it's funny, Kitete? He said, no, Mama, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. And she pulled the wooden spoon out of the pan. And she said, I told you to pull in your legs. And Kitete was screaming and crying. And his brothers and sisters, they came running. And they said, Mama, what are you doing? She said, not one word. Not one word. I'm sick and tired of you. I don't know why I bother, she said. You're not even real children. You're just gourds from my farm. Why do I bother? And the children, they looked at her. And there was no forgiving. They said, Kitete, put us back in the rafters. And she, in her confusion, didn't realize what that meant. She said, what do you mean rafters? Who's going to clean up this mess? But Kitete was already lifting his brothers and sisters and putting them up in the rafters. Kitete, she said, what are you doing? They'd already changed into gourds and Kitete was already making his way to the three-legged stove. Kitete was already crossing his legs and he changed into a gourd. And as he did, one big fat tear rolled, fell onto the ground. If you had been there, you would have heard her screams. You would have heard her lamentation. You would have heard her begging and pleading. And up in heaven, the gods and goddesses said, who is making that noise? They looked down and they said, oh, it's that one. Such a shame. To have been given such a blessing and to have wasted it. To have been given such an opportunity and squandered it. Such a shame. And then one goddess said, wait. We decided to give her that many children. That was our choice. We shouldn't punish her for that. And all the gods and goddesses, they began to discuss and debate. And when I'm in school telling children this story, I ask them to imagine that they're the gods and goddesses. To debate. Should this woman get another chance to be a mother, or is she finished forever? What do you say, children?
Another chance.
Another chance? Who says no other chances? It's finished. Oh, you're also reasonable. The children always split. There's always a group of children who says, any parent who hits a child does not deserve to have a child. Half the group say, everyone deserves another chance. And they will discuss it furiously amongst each other because they care what happens. And then after it, I say to them, so what do you think? Let's have a vote. Put your hands up. That's you. If you think she should get another chance, put your hands up. Put your hands down. Put your hands up if you think she does not deserve another chance. Be honest. Well, luckily, put your hands down. Up in heaven, those who didn't want her to have another chance were outvoted by those who did want her to have another chance. And as she sat there on her kitchen floor, crying and crying, she felt a fat hand on her shoulder. And a voice said, stop crying, Mama. Stop crying. We have to clean up this mess. The guests are waiting outside. And when she turned, she said, oh, Kitete, can you ever forgive me? And Kitete threw himself into his mother's arms. And they hugged and they kissed. And up in the rafters, the brothers and sisters, hey, Kitete, Mama, we don't have time for this. We have to clean up the mess. The guests are waiting. So Kitete and his mother lifted the brothers and sisters down from the rafters. And then they went out and they organized the most beautiful party for the whole village. And from that day, all the words that she used were encouraging words, gentle words, loving words. Every time she put her hands on her children, it was to love, to encourage. And when she felt that rage, that, come on, moms, we know we feel sometimes. She went outside. She remembered her blessings. She thanked the gods. And she went back inside. And I hope that is how you live with your children too. And that is the end of the first story. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. So, there are a lot of big words in that story. I had an experience. I was in coach school last week, and I told a different story. And what I found really interesting was the children didn't have perfect English. I was working with grade 4, 5, and 6. They didn't have perfect English. They, you know, the that you talked about earlier, JJ, they had no snake, nothing. Yeah? So everything was I go, etc., etc., etc. But the story that I told at the time involved a brother doing away with his sister. Yeah? And one of the boys put his hand up, and he had very, very limited English. But the thing that touched me was he said to me, I'm going to say, I don't want to imitate someone who doesn't speak English well, so I'll just tell you what he said. He said, why didn't the brother do what the man in Snow White did? Why didn't he kill an animal and pretend that was his sister? Now for me, for someone who has limited English, what was very important was that not only did he really connect with that story, but he made a link to another story in a language he doesn't speak regularly. He made a link to another story and was able to have a look at the characters and ask that philosophical question. Why did he make this choice and not that choice? In a second language that he was not able to be fluent in. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the rest then is up to you as teachers. But what I did was I stirred something in him that wanted to engage with a philosophical question at the age of 9 in a language he was not fluent in. Do you see where I'm coming from? Do you see where I'm going? So, to me, if you want to tell stories in the classroom, please, I'm begging you. If you want to tell stories you love. Tell stories that will make the children say, but what happened to her? As opposed to, how can I put that word in a sentence? Do you see what I mean? Touch them. If you touch them here, they'll never forget you. They'll never forget that story. And going back to what someone said yesterday about culture and language, I think it was you actually, JJ. Was it you? Someone said something about culture and language yesterday. That connection between the two things is happening when you tell a story that makes them care. Care about the characters. Does that make sense? You sure? Yes. Are you tired? No. Are you sure? Yes. So should I tell you another story? Yes. All right then. What time is it? I need a time check. 5 to 4, so I have 20 minutes. This is a story. If any of you were at the storytelling conference at Ilhas College, I'm sorry you've heard this story before. You were there? I'm sorry. You will have heard this story before. I hope you enjoy it. Okay? If you want to hear this story, when I say ho, you say hey, okay? Ho! Hey! And again, the way you say hey is a way of saying to me, yes, sir, we want it. Shut up and get on with the story, okay? That's an oxymoron, I know, but still. Ho! Hey! Ho! Hey! Ho! Hey! Once upon a time, in the forests of Martinique, that beautiful island that sits in the Caribbean Sea, there was an old woman. The old woman would sit daily by the river. And as she sat by the river, looking into the water, she would remember. She would remember the days when she was young enough to climb into that river and catch those fish called zobitons with her bare hands. When she could just snatch a fish out of the water with her bare hands. She would sit there by the river, remembering when she could climb each one of those mango trees and pull down the fruit and throw them into the welcoming arms of her husband. She would remember the days she and her husband would sit there in a warm embrace by the river. But now she was too old. She couldn't catch those fish. Her husband had died years ago. Her one son barely came to visit her. And her one granddaughter never wrote to her. And she would sit there, wondering why her life had come to this. A life of loneliness in a forest. Beautiful as it was, she was lonely. Not only that, because she couldn't climb the mango tree, because she couldn't catch the zabiton, because she wasn't able to tend to her farm, she had no choice but to eat the wild watercress that grew around that river and by her house. Watercress. Watercress is okay once in a while, but watercress every day? Watercress for breakfast, watercress for lunch, watercress for dinner, watercress soup, watercress pie, watercress flan, watercress sandwich, watercress to here. She'd had it. And she sat there thinking about how life could have been when suddenly she was aware that there was a fluttering in the bushes. She looked. She saw a bird she'd never seen before in her life. Its body was covered from beak to tail in the most vivid, beautiful blue feathers. And its wings were pink. The most beautiful, strong pink, stronger even than the pink of your phone. Pink! And she looked at the bird. She could see the bird was in trouble. One of its wings was broken. She said, "Oh, you poor thing." And she stooped down and she picked up the bird. And at first it was scared, but as she stroked it, she could feel its heartbeat slowing down. As she nestled it to her breast and comforted it, she could feel the bird relax. And she said, "I'm going to take you home. I'll take care of you. I will heal you, don't worry." And she took that bird home and she laid it carefully on her bed. And every day she would share her watercress with the bird. Every day she dropped healing oils onto the wing. Every day she would sing a song to the bird, which I'm going to sing for you now. You have your part, okay? So my part goes like this. There stands a bluebird. You sing tra-la-la-la. Well remembered. There stands a bluebird. Tra-la-la-la. There stands a bluebird. Tra-la-la-la. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Tra-la-la. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. You're doing it again, by the way. Yeah? Just so you know, I have to give you reminders. There stands a bluebird. Tra-la-la-la. There stands a bluebird. Tra-la-la-la. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Now show me your motion, which means dance, yeah? You have to do something special, yeah? Okay, show me your motion, okay? You ready? Now show me your motion. Tra-la-la-la. I said, do something special, man. What's wrong with you? Show me emotion. Tra-la-la-la. Show me emotion. Tra-la-la-la. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. If you were standing up, I would say, now dance around the ocean. Tra-la-la-la. Dance around the ocean. Tra-la-la-la. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Every day she would sing that song to the bird. Every day the bird got stronger, and one day she could see that the bird was fully healed because he came and rested on her shoulder. And at that moment she knew she would have to say goodbye to her friend. because this was a bird of the wild. She couldn't keep it. So with a heavy heart and tears in her eyes, she said, come. She lifted the bird onto her finger. She took the bird outside. She took the bird back to the river. And she said, my friend, it's been such a pleasure having you with me, but I think it's time for you to go. She kissed the bird, and she let the bird fly away. That was the end of that. She would go and sit by the river, and she would find her eyes looking up to the sky, just in case. He might come back and visit. First day, she searched the skies. No sign of the bird. Second day, she searched the skies. No sign of the bird. But on the third day, as she looked up, she saw the bird darting across the sky. That's my friend, she said. And then it came back, and it hovered above her head. And she noticed that the bird had a pumpkin seed in its mouth. The bird dropped the pumpkin seed. She caught the pumpkin seed, and she said, thank you, my friend. And the bird was gone. Pumpkin seed. A pumpkin seed, not watercress. She took that pumpkin seed back to her house, and she planted it next to her house. Every day, she watered it. Every day, she spoke to it. And after 7 days, the first shoot came up. After the next 7 days, the tendrils began to grow. And after 14 more days, there was a beautiful, fat, juicy pumpkin. She was so happy. A pumpkin. I can have pumpkin soup. I can have pumpkin risotto. I can have roasted pumpkin. I can have baked pumpkin. I can have stuffed pumpkin, stuffed with watercress. But at least I will have pumpkin. And she took her knife and she very gently cut the pumpkin. And she took it into her house. She licked her lips as she anticipated that beautiful, bright yellow flesh and all of those seeds which she would roast and eat. And she cut the pumpkin in half, but strange things of all strange things. That pumpkin was not full of orange flesh or seeds. That pumpkin was full of food. Already cooked food. What was in that pumpkin? If it was your pumpkin, what would it be? Yeah. Which? Kebab. What else is in that pumpkin? If it's your pumpkin, what would it be? Brownies. Brownies and chocolate cake. You two need to talk. Pizza. What else is in the pumpkin?
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake. What else is in the pumpkin? Fish. Baked or fried? Baked fish. What else is in the pumpkin? Potato. Anyone else? Chicken. Baklava. Chocolate baklava. Yeah, I've heard all about chocolate baklava. There was so much food inside this pumpkin, and her heart was so glad. And she ate, she ate, she ate, she ate, she ate. She couldn't eat all of it. Then she remembered her neighbor. Now I say a neighbor, she was the only other person living in that region. And she lived on the other side of the forest. And she was one of those people who would always remind you of how unfortunate you were. She was one of these people who would always say, oh, my son came to see me. You haven't seen your son? Oh. My granddaughter was here with me picking mangoes. You haven't seen your granddaughter? Oh. She was one of those. And so the old lady, she wasn't too keen on her neighbor, but she wanted to share and not waste. So she went to see the neighbor. And she told her about the bird. And she offered her the food. And the neighbor said, thank you. You're so kind. Chocolate baklava. You are so kind, she said. Thank you. And from that day, the old woman would share her pumpkin with her neighbor. But the neighbor was dark-hearted. You know what I mean? And she wasn't satisfied. She said, why should I have her leftovers? I want my own pumpkin. My own bird, my own pumpkin, my own food. I won't share it with anyone. So every day she went to the river. Every day she searched for that bird. She looked in trees, she looked in bushes. And then one day, she was aware of a fluttering. This bird was blue from beak to tail. And its wings, what color were the wings? Pink. Beautiful pink, deep, deep, deep pink, a pink you've never seen before in your life. But this bird was fully healthy. And the neighbor, she looked at that bird. She took a stick. And she smashed that bird and broke its wing. And then she took the bird home. And she threw the bird in the corner of her house. And she did not give it things to eat. And she did not sing songs to the bird. And after 3 days and 3 nights, she was sick and tired. She picked the bird up and she said, I want my pumpkin seed. And she went outside and she threw the bird into the air. That poor bird was lilting, listing. And it flew away. Every day for 3 days she went out and she looked into the sky. Where's that bloody bird, she said. Where is that bird? First day, second day. On the third day, she saw the bird dart across the sky. I thought so, she said, about time. And then the bird came back and dropped the pumpkin seed. She caught the pumpkin seed. She went home. She planted the pumpkin seed by her house. But she didn't lovingly water it. She didn't talk to it. And I have to tell you, I'm really sorry, it's quite disgusting. But you know her potty? You know potty? Yeah? Every morning, that's what she would use to water the pumpkin seed. Yeah, she had no heart. You know what I mean? But some don't know what I mean by potty, yeah? She would pour what was in the potty onto the pumpkin seed. After 28 days, a great big fat pumpkin, bigger even than her neighbors. Yes, she said, this will serve me well. She ripped that big pumpkin out of the earth and she took it home. She put it down on the table. She took her big chopper. She imagined all the delicious things that would be inside that pumpkin. And whoops! She cut the pumpkin in half. But there were no delicious things to eat. There was no kebab. There was no brownies, no chocolate cake, no baked fish. There was no chicken. There was no chocolate baklava. There was no kofta. There was nothing that you would want to eat in that pumpkin. Instead, there were scorpions, mosquitoes. There were creepy crawlies. There were worms. There were slugs. There were great big lizards. One of them climbed up. She was so scared. She ran from the house and they chased her. They chased her away from her house and to the river. She jumped into the water and she swam and she swam and she swam and she swam into a story where there are no creepy crawlies and no scary things and hopefully where no pumpkins grew. But our friend, the old lady, she sat by the river. And every day, a bird would come and sit on her shoulder. A bird that was blue from beak to tail. A bird that had most beautiful pink wings. And every day she would sing to that bird. There stands a bluebird, tra-la-la-la. There stands a bluebird. Tra-la-la-la. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. I'm going to check you. Now show me emotion. Tra-la-la-la. Show me emotion. Tra-la-la-la. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Now dance around the ocean. Tra-la-la-la. Dance around the ocean. Tra-la-la-la. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Give me sugar, coffee. Repeat it. Give me sugar, coffee and... One more time. Give me sugar, coffee and tea. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. So now, these two stories that maybe you think are very emotionally charged and they're for adults, I tell them to children, little children. They love them. They love them because they care. They care about that old woman. They care about that bird. They care that the neighbor gets what she deserves. They care. They care about that mother. They care about those children. They care. And as long as they care, their interest in that language that you're telling them that story in will persist. If they don't care, they won't care about what you're saying. They won't care about what you're teaching. They just won't care. So tell stories that you love, so they will love them, so they will come to you in their halting English and demand more. I thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Where's the stairs? They're over here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Jan, come back up here. Come on. Everybody, there's nothing to say. Everybody, Jan Blake.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome.
Thank
Here
you.
you are.
Thank you so much.
And you're wonderful little.
Thank you. I love it.
You're wonderful.
Thank you. One more.